Alright, so in this video I wanted to talk about three subjects. One being clothing, one being e-bike etiquette, but lastly, bike and bike maintenance. So what have I learned in 8,000 miles? Well, I find that comfort is key. So if you don't like riding your bike, then you're not going to do it. It's that simple. So that's why I put clothing first. Make sure that you're super comfortable at all times. It's really easy to plan in the summer and the winter because temperatures are fairly consistent, but like now in the fall, it's good to kind of plan out your layering. So I've got four basic layers. I've got a thermal layer, I've got whatever I'm wearing to work, I've got an insulating layer, so like a synthetic down jacket, or I've got like a Patagonia, it's called a better sweater, but it's a fleece basically. And then I've got my raincoat, which is my normal everyday coat. I've also got some shoe covers and some rain pants and some waterproof winter gloves, like motorcycle gloves, as well as like a neck gaiter, a thin lined hat to go under my helmet. Basically the combination of all those things. I am weatherproof and I am comfortable at whatever temperature. I can take layers off and recombine like a transformer and just be whatever, take on whatever weather comes my way. So I would also add bike clothing, so bike storage and weatherproofing I'll put in this section as well. I chose waterproof Ortlieb panniers for storage. I've got my bike bag or my battery bag and my top tube bag, and those are all pretty much weather resistant, weatherproof. I also have like a waterproof cover that I can put over my battery bag if it's going to be really rainy or if I have to leave it out in the rain for an extended period of time. But overall it's pretty weatherproof as is, and I haven't had a need to wrap it up very often. But it's important to have your storage kind of planned out, and that's why I have the top two bags, so I can use that for smaller things. Organization is key, just as well as clothing choice. I feel like both are equally important. When you're planning longer trips or your e-bike commuting, you kind of have to have this extra level of preparedness because you're dealing with an electric vehicle. It's heavier. If you're ending up stranded or something, you have to kind of plan for that. So I think, bike storage is really key, and organization within it. So e-bike etiquette. The reason why this is going to be a topic I talk about is because in 8,000 miles, I found that I pass nearly everyone. So being that that's the case, you're generally inclined to push in front of people, but I suggest and I recommend to try to flow with traffic as much as possible. Maintain all bike rules. If it's 4 a.m. and there's no one out, I'll do a California stop. But otherwise, I'm generally following traffic rules, and I treat other riders with respect. I don't shoal. I don't push in front of people at the light to try to beat them, even though I know I'm going to. It's fairly inevitable, but I find it's better to just kind of hang back and wait till the flow of traffic kind of presents itself. Like you see who's faster and who's slower, and it's easier to gauge how to approach passing a bunch of riders that way, instead of just kind of pushing in front. Not only were you going to make people upset, you're going to kind of make e-biking look, I don't know, you just don't want to be that e-bike douchebag on the road. That's what I'm trying to say. So bikes and bike maintenance. Bikes, the reason why I want to talk about that is, I've converted a lot of different types of e-bikes, and I'll say that you can probably do more or less any bike. The type of motor and battery placement and configuration is really going to steer your planning in terms of how you want to build it. So you definitely want to pick what kind of bike you want to start with and then build around that versus buying all of your e-bike parts and then trying to make them fit on a bike. I found the steel mountain bike hardtail to be the perfect commuting frame to build off of. I'm going to stick with that pretty much forever now. It really works in my type of riding environment, my riding style. I'd say, get a frame that's your right size. It doesn't matter if you have V-brakes or disc brakes. You don't need huge balloon tires. That's just a matter of preference and usually dependent upon rider weight. The upgrades I chose to change on my bike are like pedals and brakes, tires. I got new spokes and nipples for my rear hub motor wheel. Those are the upgrades that really matter. You don't really need to upgrade your drivetrain. If you want to upgrade your fork, you can. That's probably going to be my next upgrade. Yeah, storage, accessories, things of comfort, those are more important to me so far than upgrading my bike, but mainly because it's a commuting bike. It's supposed to be kind of beat around and get me from A to B, and I don't want to put a lot of money into it in terms of bike because if I do leave it parked outside, I don't want it to look flashy. My bike really looks like a normal bike, especially when I have the panniers on. It doesn't look like an e-bike at all, and I really like that. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable leaving it outside. If you're going to convert a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 mountain bike, that's something you're not going to want to leave outside a grocery store or university. So making those choices are, something to consider. Also, building your bike. If you plan on commuting a lot, I would say if you are comfortable with a little bit of electrical work and bike maintenance, then I highly recommend building one. Mainly because it gets you more involved, not only with the EV community, but also with your bike. Choosing a production bike is definitely easier, but you are going to spend a lot more money, which then in turn, when you're leaving it out in the open, those brands are going to get recognized, and I think people will be more likely to steal a production e-bike versus a DIY e-bike because they'll have a harder time selling a DIY bike for sure, and parting it out isn't really going to, nobody really buys e-bike used parts at this point. And that gets us to bike maintenance. So I feel like if you're going to own an e-bike, the minimum level of maintenance you need to know how to do is being able to change your inner tube and lubricate your chain and derailleur parts, and adjusting your brakes and replacing brake pads. That's your basic level of tools that you need as well on a daily basis to keep with you. If you are making a DIY bike, it's probably good to have a little bit of extra electrical parts, whatever you use, like different connectors or a way to make a repair to a connection. I've only had that happen with my LiPo setup, so if you are going with LiPo and you have a lot of different terminals and connections going on, you may want to think about being able to replace those on the road as well. And then I chose to maintain a higher level of my bike, basically try to maintain everything I can. So YouTube is a really great platform for learning on how to maintain your bike. You don't have to look up e-bike specific things for most applications. I would say like adjusting brakes and lubrication and things like that are just all across the cycling sphere. General tips and tricks, you might look into the Endless Sphere forum. Endless Sphere is a really good resource for questions you may have on DIY build. It's harder to search through the Endless Sphere forum. Most often I found my results by just typing into Google search your question and putting Endless Sphere at the end. and usually someone has talked about it. My general DIY e-bike building tips would be: find a bike that suits your riding style and preference, and then start to look into building off of that. Think about weight management. Where do you want to place your weight? Because that's going to affect the way your bike behaves. There's a lot of good vendors out there for parts. I find that depending on where you live, you should find a local parts distributor, because that is going to save you a ton of money in the long run in shipping. I live in the US, and I tend to buy parts from Luna Cycles as well as Grin Technologies. Those are the two main distributors that I've used, and the rest of the parts are general bike parts, so I use my local bike shop. Some bonus tips for first-time builders. I would say if you're going to put your money anywhere, put it into the battery. I personally find that 52 volt batteries on a 48 volt 1000 watt motor kit is my sweet spot for power and range and fun. When looking at what controller and motor you want to go with, keep in mind that the cheap kits, you're kind of locked into the connectors that they have, whereas if you have a wheel custom built, or you buy a more expensive kit, they'll normally come with more universal connectors. But if you are comfortable with rewiring, then it doesn't matter, and you can save money using the cheaper kits. I found that the YesCom motor is perfect, and a lot of the other motors are built using that template anyway, so you might as well just go with the cheap kit. But think about the connectors you're going to use, what type of throttle you want. I personally like thumb throttles over half twist and twist. Your thumb will get tired, so you may think about getting a cruise option. Other than that, it's all about preference, and you'll find a lot of information all over the place on, you need this, and this is the most important thing. Really, it comes down to, building a bike that's going to suit your needs for you personally, and just taking tips and tricks as you go. But I don't think there's a definite must-have any device or any component. I think everything really comes down to preference. So with that, thanks for watching. Good luck on your build or buy, and I'll talk to you later.